Good to have you back. You're still watching Smart Means Business. We now start off this hour of 8 o'clock with our business tip of the day. The tip says any discount is a special deal. If you're giving a customer or a client a discount, let them know it. When you send the bill, be certain to indicate the regular price and then the voluntary discount you're giving them. That reminds them that they are getting a special deal. And a discount is a special deal. If you're giving a customer or your client a discount, let them know when you send the bill. Be certain to indicate the regular price and then the voluntary discount you're giving them. That reminds them that they are getting a special deal. So don't just give it to them minus them knowing. Let them know that at least you're giving back to them, because businesses normally give back to customers and they will never tell them. At least let them feel special and be proud of supporting you and your business. Now, away from that, let's get more motivations with our business quote. The business quote is coming in from Kylie Braga, founder of Frost and co-founder of Exposure. Says, get a mentor in the applicable field if you are at all unsure of what you're looking for. Get a mentor in the applicable field if you are at all unsure of what you're looking for. So we all need mentors in the kind of fields that we are in, because these mentors will ideally give us at least something to benchmark, something to look at as we progress in life. So the mentor is supposed to be someone you look at or you look up to, especially when you're starting up with life. Sometimes it's never easy. That is what this particular quote is saying this morning. Okay, and away from that, as we continue to give you more business updates, yesterday's particular riots as Raila Odinga started the protests in Kenya, that is in areas of Nairobi, Kisumu, looking at especially around Nairobi, Kibera, Mathare, areas around there where it was too tight. Then areas of Thika, name the areas there, whereby most of the protests were ongoing in Kenya over the fact that Raila Odinga is saying the elections were unfair to him. Not only that though, he also believes that this is the same reason as to why the Kenyan economy isn't performing so well. Now let's have a look at what was happening on Twitter yesterday as these particular situations were ongoing. Now, Gabriel Oguda with a tweet, Raila Odinga in Eastleigh has said from today there will be a holiday every Monday for Kenyans to rest from the high cost of living. That is according to Gabriel Oguda, who was quoting what the former Prime Minister, Baba Raila, had to say in regards to that matter. Now, Elvis at Elvis_Locoman says, Mau Mau killed almost 2,000 of their fellow Kenyans than the British. They were fighting for their clan land, not Kenya, which they never got. Let no one lie to you that Mau Mau fought for Kenya. Funny enough, few collaborators whom later history lied that they were the freedom fighters got power and stole everything from the common man. The tweet was ideally looking at the unfairness of Kenyans, what the Kenyans were getting. Kibe at it_Kibe says, cost of living an idea to Hundui Kenyans to join Madamano. Then they hijacked it with Fungua Sava, stop recruitment of IEBC commissioners, but the hidden agenda is handshake and tax holiday for Raila Odinga. Now this one has his own say regarding the protests that were ongoing yesterday in Kenya. Now at NAS with a tweet that back then technology in Kenya was merely a concern. I like Kenyan tech because it keeps on changing and improving each day. It also makes room for learning new things like new trends in ICT. These new changes do enrich us with more relevant skills in the tech field. Please join us. And Shadrach Mutuku at its Shadrach with what should you do when the economy is under pressure? He puts a picture illustrating Kenyans. Now Chithure Kindiki fans with a tweet that the safety of every Kenyan is guaranteed. Police officers doing their best today. Security eco-tight at iCoward CBD. Then furthermore, the Right Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula at Honorable Wetangula says that the flagrant disregard for the law and disrespect for Kenyans will be expressed in the last general election, and it's a threat. Then furthermore, Smart24 Television with a tweet at Smart24 TV, hashtag latest. It's turning to the dark side in Kenya every time. Via at Kenyans, that is the image at kenyans.co.ke. And follow at Smart24 TV for the latest updates as they are happening. Hashtag Kenyans, hashtag driving business, hashtag Smart24 TV. And right, that was more of what was happening yesterday in Kenya. Now, besides that, we now look at the regulation of venture capital firms, as innovators have been advised to ignore the soft skills and shouldn't be dwelling much on the equity funding, according to what is happening in regards to the venturing into this kind of space for most of those who want to definitely get into this. This is basically going to be rotating around our second business update, as government is throwing its weight behind the venture capital investment as a means of at least spurring economic growth with time. This includes at least also creating a job creation kind of set. And with the new venture capital fund, startups and SMEs will now have access to the capital. They need to grow and thrive. At the same time, they will be creating jobs and contributing greatly to the economy. We do have Councillor Luis N. Tizito in this particular update, and we shall surely be getting back with more discussions.
Venture capital is kind of financing that is leveraged by innovators. It falls under the wider spectrum of private equity. Of course, Capital Markets Authority has attempted to regulate the space. A few stakeholders in these meetings have been opposed to the kind of regulation they're taking, because we feel that Capital Markets Authority is supposed to regulate conduct, not asset classes, because you run into the risk of over-regulating the space and you kill it. So what we are arguing is, if Capital Markets Authority want to come up with regulations, which they did anyway, because now they came up with private equity regulations, but again the law does not allow capital markets to regulate private equity. So these are the contradictions of the regulatory area of venture capital in Uganda. It's been a back and forth. It's been debate. It's just been, it's a work in progress and full of fights. So I wouldn't want innovators to focus so much on the regulatory aspects of it, unless they want to set out a venture capital fund. If you're a regulator and you're going to get venture capital, please get it. But the regulatory aspects on what you should get, that's no, because already the regulatory framework is bad. But Uganda is raising some venture capital. I think last year we raised about, according to some estimates, they've started with around $20 million US. And that is what is reported. Some people, this is private transactions, some people don't report these transactions. So the idea is, as an innovator, always have a pitch deck, always focus on the soft skills to get this financing. The product offering should be, of course, good, but when you're pitching, you need communication skills. So actually you need more soft skills to get this money than hard skills, because chances are high that by the time you have the hard skills of getting the product, the funder will be looking at aspects of, okay, what is the team? How competent are they? Because venture capital, unlike its sister, private equity, goes to the company, not the shareholders. So another thing I think the government should look into, because I saw that they're having a startup bill. The Ministry of Trade is doing a regulatory impact assessment. We should look and study the idea of seed enterprise investment schemes. Seed enterprise investment schemes are will come with a portion of tax reliefs to people who will invest venture capital in these companies. As it stands, venture capital has a lot of tax implications to it. That is why people don't want to domesticate 100% here. They rather go have it in Mauritius, have companies there, then channel it here, something of the sort. So the idea is, if at all, we can have seed enterprise investment schemes in this startup bill and do less of the bureaucratic tendencies, then maybe we can attract more capital and our funders will get the adequate financing. The issue is with the startup bills that doesn't look into these areas. How to structure private equity funds and venture capital funds, we need to look into that. They cannot be companies, they can be limited partnerships, variable companies. So we need a robust framework to domesticate venture capital. And we also need seed enterprise investment schemes to give our entrepreneurs and their investors hope that the regulatory environment and the tax environment is not harsh. But needless to say, despite all the challenges journalists are raising, startups have been raising money. They have been, despite the challenges.
Why is the tax part very harsh?
Capital gains. You know, when you are going to get money and then you get shares in exchange, the shares will increase in value. So the taxman will say, oh, you acquired shares that were 500 shillings per share. Now they are worth 10,000 or 1,000. We are going to charge you that 30% of that capital gains. That is always the problem. But in countries like Mauritius, it is 0% capital gains. You see? So that is always the sticky part. And then you have these dividends. You see, venture capital relies a lot on disposing and acquiring shares. So the tax implication of that, if it is not dealt with, you will find people who do what you call corporate inversions in the industry, where, yes, I'm a Ugandan company, but I've been told to register a company in Mauritius for tax reasons. Because there's a Mauritius double taxation treaty with Uganda, which allows an investor who is coming from Mauritius for not to be charged capital gains tax 0%. So some of these things need to be looked into adequately if we are to compete in the region, because the Kenyans are very aggressive. Kenyans are trying their best. Uganda, I think, because of the policy, but on ground, the innovators who are getting the money, they don't even paying attention to these issues I'm saying. They just come to bite at a later stage. But they're important because a sophisticated investor knows these things. It's just the entrepreneur who may not know. So he may decide not or not to. But like I said, there are workarounds around these issues. You go register a company somewhere just to make sure you take advantage of the double taxation treaties in Mauritius so that you don't get charged capital gains. So I feel the gist and the moral of the story that we need seed enterprise investment schemes. Seed enterprise investment schemes will detail the tax reliefs, the regulatory environment, what licenses to get where necessary, but we should not go so much into the bureaucracy of, for you to get this financing, then you need to register, give us this paperwork. No. So the taxation is a problem because I think majorly of capital gains and because of the structure of the financing arrangements. So we need to look into them quite adequately and reasonably. And that is a government. And I have not had these voices in the regulatory impact assessment that I read from the Ministry of Trade. So that is the biggest problem.
All right, of course, innovators have been reminded not to ignore soft skills if at all they are to at least benefit from these venture capital firms. And of course, this has been entirely looking at the regulation of venture capital. Barita Andrew joins us again this morning. Good morning, Andrew.
Very good morning.
Big issue here to talk about. The issue to do with, for example, the evolution of the blockchain and everything here in the country.
Well, now getting back to that, talking about the venture capitalism aspect, I like the fact where he said he shouldn't dwell so much on the funding. Remember, actually, yesterday, if we're discussing something, actually, I remember we're relating it to women, and we said, yes, however much it goes beyond having the good skills, like what he has been talking about, the hard skills, that, let me say, how do you convince me, like yesterday we were saying, how do you convince me for me to give you a contract? That what you're going to give me is okay. So here is, how do you convince me that where I'm putting my money, I'm not risking, So that is something that the innovators in there need to really check up too. Of course, the hard skills is, yes, you've had a good presentation, you have a good idea. On paper, it's very okay. But then the soft skills, it comes in this aspect of trying to, okay, how have you organized your team that you're going to work with to execute what you're executing? It's very key because that is an important driver that is going to give me the confidence to invest my money in you. But now, still talking about the Capital Markets Authority coming out to, regulation of venture capital. I mean, that is something which is quite a little bit tricky, and as compared to law, the capital market is not actually supposed to regulate this. Or what we can call the equity funding. That even the regulations that are already there already have some bit of loopholes in a way. But I believe as stakeholders, and of course people into something to do with the laws, they are really doing whatever it takes to ensure that atmosphere is really put in hold. Because like it or not, we have lots of startups that really need this venture capital funding, and that is in Uganda. But it's quite very sad. I landed on a report, Jerome, here. It says it's today. Okay. It was released 18 hours ago.
Okay.
Talking about venture capital this month. But the picture here is about Africa.
Okay.
It says that tech venture funding announcements have slowed in Africa.
Why? What has been highlighted as the main cause?
Now, this is what we see. They say that with early and growth stage funds retracting their steps due to tightening economy. We are looking at, so now this is a global, a continental perspective. It's not just about, an individual countries. Africa at large, and that is so scary. Now, this month, March, startups have announced a little over $33 million in venture capital funding. The gentleman said that last year we had about $20 million in circulations of within the country Uganda, money which was available for venture capital, which was available for innovators to lobby in case they are really good. Well, that is quite okay. That was last year, but now this year figures seem to be changing. So on the $33 million, the question is, what is the portion of Uganda on this 33? Now, compared to the first 20 days in Feb, where they raised $500 million. $500 million, that's about $500 million. Yes, that's $500 million.
In Africa.
Yes, in Africa. They say compared to the first 20 days of Feb, that is the previous month, where they raised $500 million. Now this month's numbers are down by 90%. Now a 90% decrease. So imagine from $500 billion to a slow rate of $33 million. That's quite too long. And looking at the instabilities that are going on, the wide range of instabilities, there is worry of where this whole scenario is going to really end up. Now, this is Bruce Nserekorule. He's a general partner at Seed Stars Africa Ventures. He made a statement and said that with the global economic slowdown trickling into 2023 due to inflationary pressures and tightening monetary policy, investors on the continent will maintain a judicious approach to investment, and African startups will continue to find fundraising challenging. A challenge when it comes to raising. Those are startups, talking about innovators. So, and looking at such a scenario, it's very quite unfortunate if the regulatory framework within our country, Uganda, that is from the Capital Markets Authority, is really lagging behind. So it shows you that there are quite loopholes within the system, and this is not good for Uganda. Looking at what the entire continent is facing when it comes to raising, like startups raising money, in that aspect. However, the regulation might be okay. Sometimes there should be terms. Sometimes you cannot be this money, but there are some unrealistic expectations. So probably that's why the regulation is important.
Okay.
I give you.
But when you look at least a little bit of the venture capital kind of situation here in Uganda, venture capital funding or kind of investment, we've got to see a number of innovators, entrepreneurs, who have been at least who have always been guided through financing. Most of them have been given a financial startup or a breakthrough by these particular different stakeholders, maybe NGOs. We've got international donors who come through to help them start up, especially in the world of innovation. But the only the sad part about this one, as government is even continuing here, by the look of things, that government throwing its weight behind a venture capital investment. Every time you hear of a symposium or let's say of a given competition, you'll come to realize that government has come up with let's say a fund. You'll hear of international companies coming up, or they will set up a competition.
Yes.
But then one of the other challenges is that even when the innovators get, let's say, startup capital of, let's say, a sum of around 5 million, 10 million, normally these days they actually give in dollars, $10,000.
Yeah, very true.
$20,000 of seed capital or a check of that particular money. But then afterwards, when you check into the developments of these innovators, this money is normally used for other things. People tend to use this money into personal kind of thing. There are very few who are dedicated to putting back the money into the business or into this kind of innovation. I think this is also undermining the progress of innovations that are backed by venture capital.
Venture capital. Okay, well, actually, you're very right about that. Now, that's why the regulation aspect needs to come in. That, yes, because there need to be laws. Of why everything, governing every step that we take. I've given you my money. I'm not giving you a donation.
Yes.
I'm expecting a return on investment. So there should be some sort of a policy. Okay, fine. I know things may not go as you expect. That is okay. But that should be really clearly seen that, okay, maybe this year, probably if we're heading towards COVID and, COVID hit you, I can understand as a venture capital, as a person who gave you money.
Yes.
But then there ought to be that aspect of accountability and actually realize that sometimes, like what you've mentioned, some of these innovators that get this money and they don't put it into use, sometimes they never value money you've not worked for. Probably you pitched and you went and the day one you have it all. But I know of innovations, I may not mention them here, but if you know what they went through to get where they are, even when by the time they got the funding, they were ready. They had gone through massive pitching processes to reach where they are.
Yes.
It's not a one-day thing. I mean, you need to realize. Now, that's the whole challenge. That's why they do always profile checkups. You're pitching, but is it the first time you're doing this? Are there some people you've already sold this idea to? How did it go?
Okay, how did it go? How did it progress?
How did it progress?
The development of your project. Is it a first time?
Is it a first time? Because by chance, you may be convincing. You have the soft skills, you have the hard skills.
I know.
And, it works out. But do you know? So it's going to feel like, things are easy. Everything I think should be done. So you may not really value attach money. That's why you find that some of the innovators or even startups that hustled on their own without venture capital actually make it up as compared to these other venture capitals. So that's why, though we shall not put a limit to the first timers, but we need a regulatory framework that governs me, the person that has given you the money, including the person who has gotten the money. We should agree on realistic terms, but still, at the end of the day, I need to see my return on investment regarding that. So I'm hoping when they're revising the regulatory framework, it shouldn't be just in favor for the receiver, but also to the venture capital person, that is, that company that is providing that equity, for you to invest, should also be catered for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And surely on that particular note, the government is continuing to throw in its weight behind this kind of venture capital investment because government looks at it as a means of spurring economic growth and job creation. For the venture capital is mainly financing that is provided to innovators like the entrepreneurs and different companies. And of course, the venture capital is normally backed through capital financing. There is a technology expertise and managerial experience to at least help these other people in business to also develop and grow their business kind of setting. You're still watching Smart Means Business. It's 25 minutes past 8 a.m. this morning. The Zabu markets are officially open though. It's Tuesday. It's not a public holiday. So you can easily start your investment with the platform. Star 292 hash is the USSD code that you can use to kickstart off your investment and of course be part of the ever growing business world here in Uganda. Zabu says, my money, my future. Altec East Africa, do something new. Markets open at 8:15 a.m. and closing time is 3:15 p.m. Of course, as well. That is East African Standard Time. Please do note that these markets are fully closed during the weekends and also during public holidays. Zabu, my money, my future. After the break, when we return, we've got the latest from sports business and the entertainment business with Barija Andrew here. Good morning.